we got to go to New York now to figure out who put the knife in Tom Thibodeau's back. Let's go to Mitch Lawrence, who's covered the Knicks forever. NBA writer, host, Sirius XM. He's got an amazing background there, as you can see. All right, Mitch. So we were talking during the commercial break, and you described the Garden as a pit full of vipers. Can you kind of break down what happened? Because Thibodeau just led the Knicks to their best season this century, and then he gets axed.
Yeah, I mean, he had their best playoff run since 1999, and the fans were partying like it was 1999. And all of a sudden, he's the guy who's the scapegoat. Listen, the Garden front office is full of vipers. These are guys who have their own agendas, whatever they are. They leak stuff to the media. They want certain people in, certain people out, and they had it in for Tom. It goes beyond basketball, Jason. It goes beyond he didn't develop a bench. It goes beyond guys didn't know their roles. It goes beyond, you didn't have an offensive imagination. This goes beyond all that stuff. And now we're going to see who Jim Dolan, the owner, who gets his ear and who he talks to and who they settle on as the next coach and say, this is what when I was, based in New York and at the New York Daily News doing 21 years of NBA columns, this was familiar ground for anybody who dealt with the Knicks and dealt with Jim Dolan. It's a treacherous place if you're a coach because you're the guy who's the face of the franchise. They don't let Leon Rose talk. Dolan doesn't talk. So Tom Thibodeau was the guy who had to talk. Nobody's held accountable in terms of Leon Rose or Jim Dolan. And, stuff like this happens. It's run differently than any other organization, and it's been unsuccessful in a lot of ways. It's the anti-Spurs, anti-Miami, whatever you want to call it. They do things their own way. And for the most part, before Time came on board, they were irrelevant and a dumpster fire. And I think Knicks fans probably fear now that's the road they're headed back on.
Yeah, especially if you don't make the right hire. So who would you say has the biggest pull or the most pull in making the hire? Is it Dolan, who's kind of been out of the mix? He was with the Sphere in Vegas building that. Is it Leon Rose? Do the players have a say here? We know it's a players' league. Jalen Brunson couldn't save Tibbs. But how do you break that down?
Jalen Brunson liked Tibbs, so and they didn't listen to him. So you also have to wonder what that means for him, especially if they get rid of his father, who's on the bench. I think that has to be a concern for Knicks fans, too. Listen, I think it's going to probably be a few people. It'll be Leon Rose. They'll run it by Dolan. Dolan will, do his checks. It's hard to tell. It's because nobody really talks publicly. Like, what they should do is have Leon Rose out there today to say, this is why we fired Tom Thibodeau. I'm going to take questions and answers. And by the way, this is what we're looking for in our next coach, to give people an idea of what they're going for. But the Knicks don't do things like that, like other teams. They don't make people, Pat Riley goes public after his team gets wiped off the court against Cleveland, and he owns up to stuff. The Knicks don't do that, so you never know their game plan. So it's very hard to say exactly how it's all going to run or who's going to have the power or who's going to, who wants who out there. You're always dealing with a lot of mystery at the Garden.
Yeah, and it feels like, I don't know if you use the word accountability, but Leon Rose, shouldn't you step up and meet the media and talk about this?
Yeah.
That seems like the way we should do it, no?
Everybody does it that way in the league. I mentioned Pat Riley, Brad Stevens, when things went south for Boston this year, the defending champs, he met with the media. I think you had Daryl Morey and Nick Nurse meet in Philadelphia. Nobody had a worse year expectation-wise than probably Philadelphia. Jim Dolan doesn't want his people like Leon Rose and other GMs before him to speak publicly. He kind of has you hear teams having a media policy. He has an anti-media policy. That's for as long as for the longest time. And a lot of it dates back to that sexual harassment case in, post that in 2007. That's already 18 years where Isaiah Thomas and the Knicks got in big trouble. Though it cost Dolan $12 million. After that, the league basically held sway, David Stern, over the Knicks. That's when they hired Donnie Walsh. Jim Dolan listened to the NBA then. But since then, he does things his way. He's not going to have Leon Rose at all talk to the media. the next coach will be the face of the franchise, just like Tom Thibodeau, which adds to, the pressure of the job in New York. Now you're the coach. Not only you have to coach the team, prepare the team, now you're also the face and the voice of the franchise. Puts a lot of pressure on that next coach, besides the fact that obviously the next coach has a very high bar. You got to come in, you got to win 11 playoff games. Because Tom just won you 10.
I'm going to throw some names at you. You tell me your thoughts. But first, the Phoenix Suns have just announced that they have hired Cavs assistant Jordan Ott, whoever that is. I don't know that is a move based on what the Knicks are doing, but there is a guy, Johnny Bryant, whose name is being bandied about as a potential Knicks candidate. I don't think you go from Tom Thibodeau to Johnny Bryant, do you?
Well, I don't think so either, but that doesn't mean it can't happen. And he seems to be the front runner right now. He was in New York. Now, you mentioned Jordan not getting the Phoenix job. Johnny Bryant was also up for that job. So now he works in Cleveland for Kenny Atkinson, but he had been in New York. He's familiar with the front office. People are familiar with him. He's got people who hope he gets a job. He has people who, from my understanding, who hope he doesn't get the job. Listen, if you think you're a championship contender, and I don't think the Knicks are, I think they're a decent cut below with that roster, with their two best players being one-way offensive players and defensive liabilities. I'm talking about Jalen, Brunson, and Karl-Anthony Towns. You've built around those guys. I don't think you can bring in a guy like a Johnny Bryant, who's never been a head coach, certainly, and all of a sudden entrust him to actually exceed what Tom Thibodeau did. I think that's an impossible spot for him. And I think that's a thing that I think Knicks fans have to be worried about.
Yeah. Michael Malone was fired by Denver maybe 2 months ago.
Yeah.
He feels like Thibodeau 2.0, doesn't like to play young guys, rides his starters. Like that was an issue for Tibbs. I would cross Michael Malone off the list. Your thoughts?
Just based on that? Well, I will say this. If you go back to his Denver team, and he had Jokic. I know SGA is the MVP, but this is like back in the Michael Jordan era. When Karl Malone won the MVP, we all knew that Michael Jordan was the best player in the world. Just like now we know that Jokic is the best player in the world. He only had a bench of basically three guys, Jeff Green, Bruce Brown, and Christian Brown. That's it. They won the title that way. So if you're hung up on this bench nonsense that he won't play your bench, I mean, think of it this way. Tom Thibodeau, is he really the first coach in the history of the NBA and maybe sports to get fired because he didn't develop a bench? It's absurd. It's absurd. Look who's on his bench. Mike Malone had a great bench with those three players versus what Tom Thibodeau had to work with. But anyway, that's a whole different story. I would hire Mike Malone. He knows New York. His father coached in New York. I knew Brendan Malone when he was an assistant in Syracuse. When I started out in the newspaper racket in 1980, I go back that far when Michael Malone was running around in basically diapers.
Yeah.
I think he's a hell of a coach. Now, 10 years in Denver, long time, won a title, maybe got a little full of himself. That's what people say. I don't know. I haven't talked to Mike since then, but he's a very good coach. And let's not forget, where was he before he landed in Denver and did a great job, their first title ever? He was in Sacramento. He did a great job there. For a franchise that continues to, that's just like total dysfunction out there, except for a few moments, right? Except for a very few moments. And Mike Malone did a good job there. I think Knicks fans would actually say, you know what? If we get Mike Malone, we can go places and not worry about what he did with his bench in Denver. Just look at his accomplishments. The only thing, though, Jason, is he going to come in? You're going to say, well, he had, let's see how he does without Jokic.
Without the best player. Yeah. That's tough. All right, let me throw one more at you. He's currently coaching the Dallas Mavericks, and his name is Jason Kidd. He played with the Knicks, obviously. He was not brought in to talk about the Luka deal. He looked shell-shocked at the press conference afterward. Are the Knicks an upgrade from the Mavs? I don't know. Jason Kidd's an interesting name.
It is an interesting name. If you look at the Knicks, in terms of where they are in the East, Indiana's there. Now, Boston's not going to have Tatum for probably a year, but they're going to be back. You've got Detroit on the rise, Orlando. We'll see what happens in Milwaukee with Giannis. The Knicks, They're probably gonna take a step back with a new coach. I don't know how Jason. First of all, he has a job in Dallas. Like you raised the point with his roster, he's not gonna have Kyrie Irving for a while. He'll have Anthony Davis. We know that Anthony Davis cannot stay on the court at points, but he's going to get Cooper Flag, right? It sounds like they're going to keep that draft pick and they'll pick Cooper Flag. So it would have to be some sort of a trade to get Jason Kidd. They're going to have to get some sort of compensation. And who knows what Nico Harrison and Patrick Dumont, the owner, are thinking these days about Jason Kidd. I have no idea. Yeah. All I know is that the Maverick fans are still irate that Luka Doncic is a Laker. That has not gone away.
Yeah. All right. Mitch Lawrence, NBA writer, Sirius XM host. Great stuff. I like the blue Knicks shirt, turtleneck. Nice job, Mitch. Thanks a lot, man.
Thanks for having me, Jason. Enjoyed it.